The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Well, there's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person. They had the Mueller hoax, the Mueller report, and that came out. No collusion after 2.5 years. That was set up by Hillary Clinton and Democrats. But this is what they do. This is what they do so well, by using what's called warfare. And that's what it is. This is warfare for the law. And we can't let it happen. We can't let it happen. Our country is going to hell. And they come after Donald Trump, weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI. We can't let this continue to go on because it's ripping our country to shreds.
Ladies and gentlemen and non-gender conforming individuals, we got him. Donald Trump has been indicted for a second time. He is now a twice impeached, twice indicted former president. The question obviously is, will he be found guilty? There seems to be quite a few Republicans who believe that what he did is worthy of a guilty verdict. Listen to his former Attorney General, William Barr.
Based on the facts, as the facts come out, I think over time people will see that this is not a case of the Department of Justice, conducting a witch hunt. In fact, they approached this very delicately and with deference to the president, and this would have gone nowhere had the president just returned the documents. But he jerked them around for 1.5 years, and the question is, did he deceive them? And if there's evidence of that, I think people will start to see that this says more about Trump than it does the Department of Justice.
Now, to be perfectly honest, this is a rare occurrence, having a Republican from any capacity not support Donald Trump in this moment, particularly because, well, we're heading into the 2024 elections, and the Republicans, or at least a good percentage of Republicans, are still committed to supporting Donald Trump. The others who are supporting Donald Trump, like Ron DeSantis, of course, they're not trying to support Donald Trump all the way back to the White House. Ron DeSantis wants to replace him, but he has to. It's obligatory at this point. In fact, social media activists from the conservative movement are calling on every single candidate. If they expect to be a candidate in 2024, then they must show their support for Donald Trump right now. Here is a clip of a Republican operative who goes even one step further and says even if Donald Trump is arrested and goes to jail, even if he's sentenced, he could still be president of the United States and even pardon himself from within jail.
It won't matter. There's nothing in the Constitution that says he can't be president from inside prison. And then once he gets there, well, he can pardon himself.
Yeah, that's the voice actually of Real America's Voice, Grant Stinchfield, a conservative media personality, who is making it clear their level of dedication to Donald Trump has no end. They will follow him all the way to, well, January 6th, to jail. And, I haven't covered this story so much because as Jack Smith, special counsel Jack Smith, was doing his investigation, there was really no reason for us to do a lot of speculation, except for the fact that I guess this is still really great for clicks for media on both sides of the argument, on all sides of the argument, whether they be centrist mainstream media, leftist media, or the ubiquitous right-wing echo chamber. They push this story as much as they possibly can because nothing riles them up more than someone playing to their grievance complex. This white conservative grievance complex that seems to believe that any level of accountability for anything they do wrong is itself persecution. They have an entitlement mentality. They believe that they are above the law and that no one should be able to hold them accountable. And in the event that someone holds them accountable, they do what they're doing now, which is calling for the full dismantling of the FBI and the DOJ. Here's a little bit more from Donald Trump in his response to his second indictment.
But it's called election interference. They're trying to destroy your reputation so they can win an election. That's just as bad as doing any of the other things that have been done over the last number of years, and especially during the 2020 election. So I just want to tell you, I'm an innocent man. I did nothing wrong. and we will fight this out just like we've been fighting for 7 years. It would be wonderful if we could devote our full time to making America great again. And that's exactly what we did. But now, again, our country is in decline. We're a failing nation. And this is what they do. I'm an innocent man. We will prove that again. 7 years of proving it. And here we go again. Very unfair. But that's the way it is. I just want to thank everybody. We are doing something very special for our country. We're putting America first. I always put
America first. Which is what he didn't do when he decided to keep those classified documents. Listen, one thing that he said, he considers this to be tantamount to election interference. And truth be told, I do believe that this is going to mess up the election, but not in the way that he is suggesting. I think this is going to help Republicans. This is absolutely going to help Ron DeSantis. Now, whether or not Donald Trump can get away with this, I don't know. It really depends now on the jury, and it depends on the case as it is presented. But what I do know is that Donald Trump is our best chance at beating Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis needs to be beat before the primary because Ron DeSantis has one slight opportunity, or rather advantage, over Donald Trump. And that's that, well, he can at least read a teleprompter without going off on a tangent, and those tangents revealing exactly how completely ludicrous and asinine he really is. Now, Ron DeSantis has the charisma of a Borg, but at least he can follow a strategy, and he can follow strategies sufficient enough to make himself look appealing. I mean, it's not hard to run for president once you get out of the primaries. It's just a glamour photo op. It's just you and your kids, running around the country, shaking hands, and all you have to do is just not be a complete and total idiot. Well, Donald Trump does not have that capacity. Donald Trump, if he makes it to the general election, is going to collapse underneath the pressure of his own ego and his own ignorance. Ron DeSantis has enough discipline to actually weather that storm long enough to win. And so this indictment, to me, interferes with the election, but not in the way that Donald Trump is thinking. I think, matter of fact, people leave Donald Trump alone until the primaries are over. I know that might not be a popular take, but my God, let Donald Trump, I mean, he's indicted, but just like push off the trial for a couple of years so that he could do what he needs to do to obliterate Ron DeSantis, and we'll take care of Donald Trump in the general election. Yesterday was an extremely busy news day. Pat Robertson died at the age of 93. We'll talk about him later, from the 700 Club evangelical who spent quite a bit of his career making the most horrific accusations against the LGBTQIA community, and doing it so in the guise of a nice elderly grandfatherly Christian man. He's dead. We'll talk about that. Also, yesterday, the Supreme Court came down with a decision that really shocked most progressives and voting rights advocates. The Supreme Court decided yesterday that the state of Alabama must redraw their congressional districts because the way they currently are drawn discriminates against the black voting populace there, which makes up about 1/3 of the voting population in the state of Alabama. But of the 7 congressional districts, Alabama only had 1 district that had a black representative. And this was done expressly through cracking the districts. It is a term in political science where you take the population in an area that otherwise would create a congressional district for a specific demographic. Because let's say you have a predominantly black area, the way you control that area and keep them from gaining congressional seats is by cracking that district and running lines through it. gerrymandered lines to crack the congressional power that black people have in the state of Alabama. And it was a shock to Supreme Court watchers and people who have been following, particularly this reign of John Roberts as Chief Justice. His tenure as Chief Justice really is really articulated by the 2013 decision that John Roberts used to effectively gut the Voting Rights Act, particularly Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act in the decision Shelby versus Holder. Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act is what required states that had a historical penchant for discriminating against black people to check with the Department of Justice to make any changes that they made had to go through the Department of Justice. And changes to the voting laws or the voting systems, anything of that type or that magnitude had to go through the Department of Justice all the way up until 2013. Between the signing of the Voting Rights Act in the 60s all the way to 2013, it was struck down by John Roberts' court. John Roberts writing the decision, if my memory serves me well. So a lot of people are surprised that now, 10 years later, he is essentially defending the last piece of this Voting Rights Act that gives the voting rights any kind of power. You know, if they had gutted Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, then that would have just left it as a completely empty, hollow shell of a law. And that's essentially what people like Clarence Thomas want, who joined in the dissent, led the way for the dissent, and wrote a 48-page dissent to this decision. Now, just to be sure what he's dissenting against, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, according to the Department of Justice.gov, prohibits voting practices or procedures that discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in one of the language minority groups identified in Section F42 of the Voting Rights Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If this had been struck down yesterday, this would have been a free-for-all for conservatives across the country to intensify their gerrymandering even more, their racial gerrymandering even more. And I put emphasis on the even more because it's not as though gerrymandering has not been completely absurd in this country for quite some time, even despite the Voting Rights Act. You know, like if you take in consideration some of the congressional maps in the state of South Carolina and North Carolina and how they are drawn specifically to crack open black congressional districts so that you can weaken the power. It's not just Alabama, right? So it's not just it's not a new thing by any measure. And in fact, it's not something that only Republicans do. Democrats are very active in gerrymandering. But the case in Alabama that the Supreme Court ruled on yesterday was so egregious. It was such an example of flagrant discrimination through gerrymandering that even the conservative Chief Justice, who previously gutted the Voting Rights Act, couldn't go along with this one, right? And that should tell us just how far gone the problem is in this country. The amount of intense focus that conservatives place on using gerrymandering as a tool, particularly in states that have a large percentage of African Americans. They have been using this as a tool to maintain power for some time. And this decision, while it is an excellent decision for people who are advocates for the Voting Rights Act, it really still puts a Band-Aid on the hemorrhaging if there's no further enforcement across these states that were honestly identified in Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act that Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts struck down in 2013. So it's hard to really take. It is a victory. I don't want to downplay it, and I don't want to seem like a doomer and say that, you know, there are so many other problems that have to be fixed. But honest to goodness, the enforcement has to take place, and it has to take place in more than just the state of Alabama, because since John Roberts gutted the voting rights, Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, the southern states that were identified as problematic by the Voting Rights Act have been doing exactly what you would expect them to do if you took away the enforcement mechanism. So yes, this is a huge victory. I am totally and completely shocked to a certain degree that this came down the way that it did. But This is just the beginning of what needs to be fixed as a result of the problem that John Roberts helped create in the first place. So I can't celebrate John Roberts so much, but I will say that this is a victory for the people. This is a victory for justice. And I quite honestly, there's a lot of black conservatives like Clarence Thomas who really are flabbergasted this morning. There's even more black conservatives who can't say anything about this. While this is a victory for black people across this country, there's plenty of black conservatives who cannot praise this victory because that means they will lose support amongst their supporters who need the gerrymandering. They need the districts to be cracked. They need black power to be diluted because that's their only way to maintain power in the year of our Lord 20 and 23.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions. Welcome back to The Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I want to circle back to the Trump indictment and give a few more details, but really I want to lean in on the irony here. I want to play a clip of Donald Trump back in 2016 when he thought that, and when he advocated for Hillary Clinton to be arrested. You remember the chant, "Lock her up." This is him discussing the handling of classified material by Hillary Clinton. And the language is just too perfect for today, just 7 years later, to see coming full circle that Donald Trump has not only condemned himself with his own words, right? The words is one thing, but in a minute, you'll see he's also condemned himself with a law that he signed in order to create tougher penalties for people who mishandle classified documents in an attempt to stick it to Hillary Clinton. This story really has that full circle feeling coming to it. Take a listen in.
This was not just extreme carelessness with classified material, which is still totally disqualifying. This is calculated, deliberate, premeditated misconduct, followed by a cover-up that included false statements and lies to Congress, the media, and the American people.
File this underneath every Republican accusation is a projection. Now, in this case, it was premonition, really, because he had not committed his illegal acts of taking classified documents back with him to Mar-a-Lago. And when the federal government came seeking them, he actively avoided them. So it was really prescient. Donald Trump is a prophet, but he didn't realize he was prophesying his own demise. I have a clip that I want to play for you that really summarizes what Donald Trump did to himself with this 2018 law. And I want to play the clip because honestly, I had completely forgotten that he had signed this into law until I came across this TikTok. And I'll give credit to the creator in a moment, but I want to give you some more information on this 2018 bill from businessinsider.com. Donald Trump in 2018 signed a sweeping national security bill into law. The bill increased punishments for those who mishandle classified information. The measure is of note after Mar-a-Lago raid thought to be connected to government documents. And a little bit more, a bill that Donald Trump signed into law in 2018 could be used to punish the former president if he's found to have mishandled classified documents and information after leaving office. Now, here is a TikTok that really kind of put this on my radar because this happened in 2018. And I completely forgot about the fact that this was laying in wait for Donald Trump due to his own eagerness to take down Hillary Clinton.
We all wait for Jack Smith's indictments to come. I don't want anyone to forget that Trump is actually in more legal jeopardy because of a bill that he signed to try to hurt Hillary. That's right. Back in 2018, Trump signed into law a new national security bill that upgraded the mishandling of classified materials from a misdemeanor to a felony and upgraded the prison sentence from 1 year to 5 years. Here, this is him signing that very law. He also used that law to attack journalists who he accused of leaking classified information. After leading all those chants of lock her up, that this might be the very bill that puts him in prison is pretty delicious.
Delicious indeed. The best I can tell, that video was from Joyce Aline on Twitter at Joyce White Vance, and the reason I say it that way is because the person I got the video from doesn't look like they properly credited the individual, so I had to track down the person. But anyway, the video is on my timeline as well, so you can go see it for yourself. But it was just a reminder of what actually happened in 2018. The news cycles get so dense that it's really hard to remember a particular law. But this particular law is one that Donald Trump signed in order to create harsher penalties for Hillary Clinton because he really believed they were going to lock her up. And now he is indicted on federal charges that can see now a felony as well as 5 years over each instance of mishandling classified documents. And the indictment against him, the 7 counts against him, actually go further than just mishandling documents, but the deliciousness, as the creator said in that last video, of the fact that this particular law, this particular penalty will be brought down on Donald Trump because of his eagerness to get Hillary Clinton. That is extremely delicious. I have a confession to make. I really do. First and foremost, this is my second take of this segment. I had a totally different section about Pat Robertson recorded, and I had to erase it and start over. And it's because of my weakness. My Achilles heel is, I am really a kind person, right? I mean, anybody who knows me knows that I'm kind to a fault. I don't celebrate when people die unless you were Rush Limbaugh. That was one death I was willing to test the universe on and really break my cover of being kind and just sacrifice it because he was such an evil person. I didn't even celebrate when Osama bin Laden was killed. To put it into context, I was, glad they got him. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Good, great. But I didn't celebrate. I didn't go outside and start doing the 1-2 step. And so when I found out about 93-year-old Pat Robertson dying, I kind of went into my normal thing, which is like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything because I didn't have anything good to say, to be sure. I'm not going to say anything because I didn't have anything good to say. What did our grandparents teach us? If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. That was before I actually listened to the clip that was compiled by MSNBC outlining some of the most outlandish, racist, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic rhetoric in less than 1 minute that you can imagine. And so I have to come back and re-record this section because I need to break my standard. I was on Leftist Mafia last night and they were celebrating, dancing on his grave. And I was just laughing and I was smiling and I wasn't disagreeing with them at all by any measure because, I knew he was a pretty sick person. But my memory has been bad lately, y'all. I just did not remember him being this sick and this twisted. So anyone who is celebrating today, while I'm not there yet. I'm not going to go and get in line and piss on his grave like I will that of George Zimmerman whenever that time comes. But I certainly understand you all doing it. Trigger warning. This next clip is full of some of the most hate-filled, racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and homophobic content in less than 1 minute. Shout out to MSNBC for compiling it so that I could be reminded that some people are better off not alive on this planet.
There's never been a civilization ever in history that has embraced homosexuality and has survived. The Bible says, if any man will not work, let him not eat. Now, that didn't say, if any man will not work, let him go to the soup kitchen and let the government pick up the tab. Something happened a long time ago in Haiti. They got together and swore a pact to the devil. They said, we will serve you if you'll get us free from the French. The people of color have to rise up and overtake their oppressors, and then, having gotten the whip handle, if I can use that term, then to instruct their white neighbors how to behave. Now, that's critical race theory. What is this mac and cheese? Is that a black thing?
It is a black thing, Pat.
Well, you could become a Muslim, then you could beat her.
But in lieu of that.
You don't want to go to Saudi Arabia?
No.
I'm talking about the cheating. He cheated on you. Well, he's a man. Okay. There are a bunch of people who are just bums. And if these people are out drugging themselves, let them starve to death. You've got a couple of same-sex guys kissing. Do you like that? Well, that makes me want to throw up. America, if you want to bring the judgment of God on this nation, you just keep this stuff up.
And he got to live to 93 years old. I don't think that there's an actual correlation between how evil you are and how long you live, because that would be a horrible statement about justice in the universe. But I will say that, the more selfish you are, the less concern you have for others, the more you simply just do for yourself and take from others, then, yeah, you probably have a better chance of living in this hyper-capitalistic and individualistic world. But that's an entirely different conversation. My natural inclination is not really to celebrate the death of anyone. That's my natural inclination, except that of, George Zimmerman and Rush Limbaugh. Not even Osama bin Laden, y'all. I don't say that proudly. I say that as like, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I should not be so, in my mind, kind. I don't know. Maybe that's not kindness, but I don't think it's weakness, because I'm really quick to turn on a dime and do what has to be done. But such is the case with Pat Robertson. My inclination was just let this old evil grandfather die, and just let it be what it is. But no. Not after those receipts. Shame on me. Let me correct myself publicly here and say, anyone who is celebrating this man's death, I salute you. Do your thing. You're not going to hear a complaint from me. I may not jump in line to piss on this man's grave. Just because I'm trying to be a better person for myself. That's all. I want to rise to a higher standard, but I certainly will sit back and watch you all do the 1-2 step on this evil man's grave, because for you, and it's compounded. The evil is compounded. Let me just give you one other thing. It's not just that I'm trying to be kind. I'm honestly trying to be a better Christian. That's what I'm trying to do. I am trying to be a better person based on my faith. Unlike this monster who used his faith as an opportunity to attack Haiti after the 2010 earthquake, and to say that it was because you think they made some kind of pact with the devil to over. It's not that Haitians could just be, Toussaint Louverture could be just so amazing, such an amazing radical that he could smash Napoleon. I almost said Napoleon Dynamite. It's Friday, and I'm getting ready to go to the patrons episode, so just forgive me. It's not that black folks could have just been so dynamic that they could whip the butt of Napoleon. It's that they had to make a deal with the devil, and as a result of that so-called deal with the devil that Pat Robertson was talking about, that's why the 2010 earthquake happened, killing 10,000. No, not 10,000. 250,000 people died. You see how memory, if you don't remember precise details, you really do miss the gravity of a moment, right? The gravity of Donald Trump signing that bill in 2018. Completely forgot about it until Sis did the TikTok video on it. The gravity of how evil you have to be to take a look at 250,000 people who died and say they died as a result of liberating themselves from the oppression from the French, right? This was just a quick sampling of his most recent hits, because this man has been at it for decades. And so now I totally have changed my position. I'm trying to be a good person, I'm trying to be a better person. But you know what? There is a space for righteous indignation. There's a space for gratitude that we no longer have to fight against this particular Christian devil. All right, folks, that's it for the public show. Patreon.com/the BPD show if you want to get access to the next half hour. And tonight, 9 p.m. to midnight, come celebrate with me, DJ Exclusive, and all the patrons. My 43rd birthday. Be in the place. And if not, I will see you Monday.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/the BPD show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.